Okay. Let's see. Why is it?
I have no.
Okay, we're ready when you are. We're ready when you are.
Call this meeting to order. This is a work session of the mayor and council, city of Bisbee, county of Cochise, state of Arizona, being held on Tuesday, August 24th, 2021, 5:30 at council chambers. I'm going to call this meeting to order and call for roll.
Councilmember Lewis Pollock.
Here.
Councilmember Joni Giacomino is going to be a little late. Councilmember Frank Davis.
Here.
Mayor Ken Budge.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Anna Klein. Councilmember Mel Sweet.
Here.
Councilmember Leslie Johns. Here. City staff, Stephen Hawkins, City Manager, Ashley Coronado, City Clerk, Carrie Bagley, Finance Director, Joelle Landers, Personnel Director, Jesus Haro, Public Works Director, Alberti Chavez, Police Chief, Jim Richardson, Acting Fire Chief, Joe Estes, City Attorney.
Thank you, everybody. We have, of course, one thing on our agenda tonight, which is the discussion of possible direction on the American Rescue Plan Act application process and how to evaluate each application. So let me start off. Of course, I wasn't here at the last council meeting, but I did watch it, of course. And with that, I could see that we needed a little more work on it. And so I did produce this possible sheet just to get us a way to start opening up conversation. How I'd like to do it tonight is a three-pronged approach. First, I would like to discuss about how we think a hard number on how much. Are we going to stay at 75? Or is that where we're going to go? Because first thing we need to do is define the amount that we're going to give and give to them. Can't vote, but we're going to give direction to them, make sure we're where we are. Once we have that number, then the second thing I'm going to do is going to talk about a hard date of when we're going to start looking at all these, and then finally go into the evaluation process. So I want to throw it open now to all council members on, is 75 the right number? Is 10% of the amount we got? Is, how does everybody feel? So, and just to not put anybody on the spot, I'm just going to start and work our way around and see how you feel. So if you don't mind, I'll go right to you. Thank you, Lou.
I'd be happy to go first.
Thank you.
I think that 75,000 is too low. Say that because the last council meeting, we had already wrapped up $57,000 worth of requests. And there were several nonprofits that I know of who didn't even know that they could apply. So I would like to see that amount increase to at least $100,000.
All right.
I would agree with Lil. We've got quite a bit of money to distribute. And it's time to apply it for requests. And we can see the vary from group to group. And we need enough money to help facilitate those requests. So yeah, I agree, at least 100,000 designated for this.
I'll just keep going. I was putting in my number of 10% of the overall amount that we've received. I know some of the requests and are what they are. If we raise it to 100,000, that's 25,000 that we won't have for the other things that's on the list. So just keeping that in mind. I was trying to hit the happy medium and was saying to myself, a good round number is 10%. Go ahead,
Before I give an opinion in this, I would like to ask maybe the city manager maybe can give us an idea about what could possibly, I mean, based on what we have gotten to what we have already budgeted to expense. Is there a number that he can recommend maybe based on this, and then we'll look at all the other numbers and come up with them. That will be my input on this.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. What I was thinking first is, and as you know, we bumped that number up from, I think, 50,000 to 75,000 when we first discussed this. You know, there's another $872,000 coming in July of 2022, and so I never thought of this number as being etched in stone. It was a number that we could adjust as we see where the need takes us down the road. Even though I think that, you know, both the mayor's suggestion and Lou's suggestion are good suggestions, we may be sitting here, say a year from tonight, and there may have, you know, maybe what has been happening in the southeast here, and it may cause us to rethink it again. So I like to think of it as more of a fluid number. I realize we need a target to shoot for going forward here tonight, and I think either one of those suggestions would work just fine for us. But we have to keep in mind that the whole reason we're getting rescue plan money is because of the pandemic. And none of us can tell yet exactly when that's going to go. So my only thought is to remain open to making more changes down the line, because we've got 2 years of allocation. So, and you know, right now you can spend $872,000 between now and next July. Whether you do or not is anybody's guess.
And I'll stick with the 10%. I'll go with the mayor on this, and let's start with the 10%.
Then I'll.
Okay, I'm inclined to agree with Lou and Frank. I think that we could throw more money at nonprofits. I think it's a really good investment for our community. Honestly, it's one of the things I'm happier to give money to. And I think we need to be, when we're in this process too, kind of like Steve said, just it made me think of it. We need to think about next year too. We need to think about, are the same people going to come back? Are they going to have similar requests? Do we want to fund anybody for 2 years now until they can't apply next year? How is that all going to work out? I'm concerned about that too.
So just as an add-in, the reason I said 10% was because we're going to consider this first batch of requests. And so, again, we don't know what the future will bring. By setting that hard number and having the hard set of requests in front of us, then we can put that. If we put, I think 100 is a fine number, but we need to, then we really have no wiggle room after that to maybe a future request down the road a little bit, somebody that comes in with something that's really a big emergency. It's kind of like putting something 13,000 in the bank for something that may come down the road. And then if we don't use that, we could use it for the next year's 2 years later funding. I just hate throwing it all out on the first throw. That's the reason I suggest. So where we're at is, my first goal is to try to set an actual hard number for these first applications. Is the 75 what we're going to stick with? Or is there going to be a new number? 100,000 been suggested. My 10% is the overall amount. So that's everybody's opinion on that. What's your
So are you saying that 10% on the 800?
be 87,000?
Yeah, I'm okay with 10%, a little more than, what we kind of set, and, but like Leslie
1 year. My feeling on the 1 year is, I don't know where we're gonna be a year from now. So I don't wanna say, okay, we're setting a maximum, and that, if you give it all to you this year, you get nothing a year from now. I'd like to see where we are next year at the same time, or even earlier, hopefully. And we can go through the same process again. I never thought we'd be back where we are, and so I have a really hard time right now saying, well, I'm planning 2 years in advance on this pandemic. And, you know, and so I want to just handle what's coming before us, personally, handle what's in front of us, have that number, make the best determinations we can, and then have a little in reserve that if a really big request comes in, we can consider that, and if it doesn't, that can be thrown into the mid batch if we need to fund something next year. So that's why you have a feeling on the 1 or 2 year type of fund.
I read a suggestion, I believe it was by you, or it could have been a question, but it had mentioned that if a nonprofit came in and asked for $10,000, we got it all, then they wouldn't get anything second year. If they came in and asked for $3,000, they got it this year, they'd be eligible for second year. Was that your?
That came from one of the things I asked from staff, so that came out of, I think, basically something you, Jolene put out, but I think it came from the Legacy Foundation, one of their, so it was a legacy thing, so, again, it was, okay, it wasn't a suggestion, it was just something
I
they.
kind of like that made sense to me. But the other thing is, we, like you said, we don't know what this is gonna be a year from now. But we shouldn't worry about that. We're gonna be where we're gonna be. The government's either going to be giving us more money, or we're gonna be in a lot of trouble. So I would suggest that we just treat this $875,000 as a windfall that came to us this year and spend it responsibly. And not worry about what's gonna be coming down the pipe. I'm sure we'll get an $875,000 again next year. We need to get more. And if it turns out what you said, right, if the Southeast shows up here on our doorstep, we may end up getting a lot more money. So I'm not really worried about the issue.
I say that I think the reality is we can't predict the future. This number really, in reality, has to be somewhat low. We can work with an $80,000 budget right now, but as things come in, that has to be flexible. at some point.
I've already said my piece.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like we're pretty much all on the same page.
Take care of this year.
Yeah, worry about next year.
Another option would be is we go out and get all the application for the fund, and will give us an idea. So we, like you said, we give some flexibility. Let's get the application. Let's evaluate the applications, the applicants, because not everyone that applies is gonna, in my belief, that's gonna qualify and get the money, because we really have to look at this and make sure we're spending it correctly. So let's just wait for the application and give ourselves this wiggle room that we can go back on between the 80 and the 100. That's the one.
So when it comes before us, if we, whatever council session we decide this will happen,
Yes.
we will, have kind of a, I like to call it a hard number, doesn't mean we can't go above, we can't go below, but it's our goal.
A working now.
Yeah, working, I shouldn't have said a hard number, that was misconstrued. That's fine.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
If I could just interrupt for 1 second, I'm just monitoring, our, Facebook page. And I've got about 7 or 8 different people complaining that that they can't hear. So, Ashley has just bumped up the volume a little bit, and I'm gonna ask all those same people on Facebook who have said that the sound is bad to, ask them to tell me if they can hear my voice clearly, and to remind everybody that, like I'm doing right now, we need to be on top of the mics for the sound to get through on Facebook.
You take the mask maybe on the speed. And
when you speak, if you take your mask
I
off.
think it would be a good idea.
The other thing is, if you can hear it coming through the big speakers, I think that, see, there you go.
You can hear it.
Then they'll hear it better. So, yeah, we're a little further away even with the mask. Thank you for that.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No,
I want-
it's important that, we're not there yet, having everybody here and having it a perfect system, so. All right, I think we can move on unless somebody has something else. We'll target a number around 80 something to 100. And then, we're not gonna worry about 1 to 2 year funding, but that's kind of the consensus. And now, how much longer do we want the people to wait for us to bring it to us? Another couple of weeks, would that be low enough to let everybody, if they need to put in more information than what they already have? Because we'll have to have at least a week for staff to add them all up and assess them and put them on our council agenda. What do you think about that, Lou?
I first wanted to ask, city manager, how this was advertised, because I got a lot of feedback from constituents who were unaware of the fact that there wasn't an application. So should we do more to advertise? What have we done already?
we used every means that there is in Bisbee, using social media, using both newspaper publications, using our website, and sharing it with other Facebook pages that have widespread audiences throughout the community. And I do know that, there were a couple that shall not be named tonight, that I was aware knew that the applications were available, but yet somebody said they hadn't heard about it. That somebody in the organization knew about it, somebody else didn't. I actually contacted several of our larger nonprofits. Well, actually only two, but two that I knew would be able to take advantage of this personally. And we are yet to receive applications from either one. So it's difficult to know if we have contacted every single person. Obviously, the meeting last Tuesday and the meeting tonight are going to help in spreading the word a little bit more. I'm seeing a lot more comment tonight from folks on our Facebook page than I did a week ago on that. So that means more people are getting the word. And and I even put it on, I even posted it on my own Facebook page just because I know I've got several hundred friends in Bisbee that see my posts. So, and each one of you can help and do that too, where you have Facebook pages. So, I'm not, in fact, I spoke with the Observer a couple of days ago, was informed that they put it in the newspaper not once but twice for us, and she will continue to do it as long as you continue to seek applications. She will publish for us. So, I know none of those methods is perfect, but collectively, hopefully, we can get the word out to as many places as possible. And word of mouth always works as well.
Thank you. And with that in mind, I would agree 2 weeks would be more than adequate time to allow for people to get their applications in, but the deadline needs to be set. And they need to be made aware of it.
All right, so as of tonight, actually, our next meeting is 2 weeks. That would really only give them, get it on the next agenda, that's about 8 days. So if not, we could go 2 weeks, have it in by, it'd have to be in by no later than the 13th or 14th, which would be 3 weeks from today to be on the 21st agenda. That's why I'm looking at my calendar.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's.
It might be pushing to get it on the September 7th. That's only a week.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's not enough time.
Okay, so we're gonna ask you to put it out, and our hard target date would be whatever you need to get it on the 21st agenda. which would be basically the 13th, the Monday, or Tuesday, 13th or 14th, the week before.
And we'll put it out there again on all the same meeting points that we went on the last time, just as another opportunity for people to see.
Just a question. Is there any way we have a list of the nonprofits and maybe contact them directly, make an effort? Because I'm aware of a few in Albany, even though I'm representing Warren, that they don't have the abilities or the know-how. Is there any way maybe we can contact them directly, call them, see if we can help them? A couple of those nonprofits, we have a list of them.
The answer is yes, we can. It helps, however, if people who know them do the same thing. So any nonprofit organizations you might be familiar with, if council could also take the same initiative, it's better to contact them twice than not at all. And so I think that's kind of the best way to do it. I mean, I've got 2 different lists in the last week of nonprofit organizations in Bisbee. I'm not sure who some of them are, or if they're even really in Bisbee. And so, you know, we kind of have to look through those with some judgment too, because they may have a Bisbee PO box and, you know, be a Gallinas or someplace like that. So it can be done, well, but that won't be perfect either.
We don't have, I don't believe we have a list on hand.
We don't.
I looked at,
You know, and please forgive me, but the way I wrote it up was emergency assistance to nonprofits. That does not necessarily mean they have to be a 501c3 or a 501 anything else. There may be a nonprofit you may contribute to, or you may be a volunteer for that's not a 501 organization, but maybe could make some good use of this money. If there's no law that says they have to be a 501.
what else? Okay, so now we move on to, and I'm gonna kind of pass it off to you all, because you had what you all said at the last council meeting. I was still trying to put it together. I just spent a day and said, well, it seems like we want some sort of rating system. So this is just a guide. It's just a pop off the top of my head as I was sitting there watching the water and having a beer. No, I'm just vacationing, and just said, okay, what can we use? And still keep it semi-simple. I don't really, my personal feeling is I don't want this to be like an application to a grant. I mean, this is not a grant application. They're nonprofits. They don't need to write a grant. So we need to know, for us to be able to judge and fund them, we need a way to have enough information. So I just kind of came up with a scoring system. So I'm gonna, if you all have, I just want you all to put your ideas out and see what we can coalesce together on tonight, and then maybe put out a supplement questionnaire. That's why I added some additional questions. If we think a couple additional questions would be good on the application, so that they have a chance to make sure that we're not confused on why they're asking for what they are. Throwing it open, go ahead. I'm not necessarily going to follow the line. I'm just I recognize Leslie first. Go ahead.
Thank you. I know this is not a grant application, but I would like to see a question on here about outcomes that they hope to achieve with this money.
Okay, great. That's, I see them taking notes over there, so that's what we want. That it?
That's it.
Okay, Frank.
I'd like to see a good explanation of how they feel that the emergency money situation applies to them. There's been some applications that have done a really good job with that. Others are need to be filled out, fleshed out more.
So something like where I wrote, please provide a detailed statement as to why the applicant is seeking.
And what they're gonna do It's Leslie's. They're gonna do money. How they're gonna spend it.
Good, okay. Anything else? This moment?
I mean, one, I think you have it covered, but maybe this, was this request, for example, and I won't name, names, we saw a couple of the application earlier. Was this, it has to be with, due to COVID, not I have something I have not taken care of years ago, and now I need to, take care of it now. I would like maybe the city manager will tell us this amount, this money has to go strictly to COVID affected situation pertaining to that entity or to because if I have something that I've had in my my nonprofit or my company and was affected years earlier, and now I'm asking for assistance. I just want clarification on that. I think you.
Yes, I think that the phrase that you want to keep in mind when you're asking yourself about any of these requests is it addressing the impact of the pandemic? Okay, so for instance, a museum perhaps may have had to be shut down for the last year and a half because the impact of COVID, as well as perhaps regulatory agencies, forced them to close. That's an impact of the pandemic that caused them not to be able to be open, not to fundraise, not to be able to receive donations and this sort of thing. That would be an impact, okay? Impacts obviously can also be medical in nature, although the medical impacts are probably being seen more in the healthcare community than they would be for what we've got, but not impossible to see. So I think if you look at everyone's request from the standpoint of what has the pandemic done to impact them in a negative way, then I think that's kind of the benchmark, if you will, of where you want to go from that.
And I think one of the questionnaire here will balance what I had asked because I think the mayor has does the request to replace funding lost. So if that entity has gotten some kind of assistance, and I think it's addressed here, then will they still be eligible? That'll be my question. We'll have to make a decision based if they had, because a lot of were able to get some kind of funding along the way, or replacement, or unemployment, whatever it may be. So how do we separate this? How do we make the decision?
In particular, a lot of our for-profit business have received PPP money, Paycheck Protection, I believe is what it stands for. There is a list that is publicly available that you can look at to determine who received PPP money in Bisbee. Some of those folks were nonprofits. Majority of them were for-profit corporations. But there's nothing in our guidelines that prohibit us from also providing them with emergency assistance, because for what the PPP money is more directed towards keeping people employed and keeping the lights on. So if there's a different impact that's involved that wasn't addressed by PPP funds, then I'd say you should still consider the application. And really, in the bottom line for you all is, I mean, you can determine. I'm just saying that that's a judgment call. You can determine if someone received PPP, whether or not you want to do that as well. That's your call. But like I say, I think it's probably to me, it wouldn't necessarily be a wise decision. Because there are other impacts to the pandemic that include things other than keeping employees paid and employed.
I might just stand a little bit on my.
Okay, that was my mind
Okay.
last week.
I might extend this a little bit. Not only is it the revenue that might have been lost because they were shuttered or closed, but also if we give them some money, will they be able to reopen and continue their mission of whatever their nonprofit does? And number two, as part of that mission, do they need these funds to be safe from COVID? So in other words, do they need money for hand sanitizer? They need money for masks. They need other things to continue in their operation safely. So those two things, besides just revenue, I would consider also. And what I'd like somehow us to ask is, does this money not only, replace funds that you've lost, but also allow you now to continue to go and get past this and also do it safely. I haven't heard from you, Lou, so sorry, it's your turn.
I like your list of questions. I'm assuming that this would be a list to be used by staff to rate and rank the applicants that come in. And not a list to be used by council members, is that correct?
Well, my idea was actually, we as council, because we all have our different opinions, would rank it ourselves. And then staff would just put those numbers together and bring them to us. So in other words, a nonprofit would have an overall score. If they scored 5 on all 5 questions from all 7 people, you'd have 25 times 7, that would be the maximum score you could possibly get. But
The staff would bring that score to us?
yes,
Okay, good.
as part of the application process.
Right. That's good. So with that in mind, my addition to this list would be a legal opinion on part of our council as to whether or not the application meets the requirements of the Federal Register. And I read 41 pages of this before my eyes glazed over.
I tried, and I couldn't get this moment.
And what I was able to determine was that it's very liberal in its application. Almost anything or anybody can qualify for these funds. The only one that gave me question on your list, Mr. City Manager, was had to do with historical preservation. So what I'm saying is, before this is given to us, before any of the questions or scores are applied, I would like to see a legal opinion from our council that, yes, this application meets the minimum requirements of the Federal Register.
Letter of the law.
Right. So that would be my only addition to the list. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any objection to that. I think, we'll just have to give Joe a little bit of time to go through however.
Right, and I think you could, it's pretty easy on a lot of them. Just put anyone that comes up with a question, then you would have to.
Also, maybe we can add to request, before we make a final decision, maybe we'll have the entity of the representative come and maybe speak to us after we, and maybe try to justify to us, so we can ask some questions along the way. After we evaluate, let's see, however we want to come in here, have them come and maybe give us a final pitch on their request.
Then we can do that, absolutely. We can throw it open, but I'll be honest, if we have 17 or 18 applications and we give them the 5 minutes to explain it, it's gonna get, I think they just gotta make their best case to us. We need to do it and then have it just come before us and vote and say, okay, I like this, but $22,000 is, we don't have that to give you, but what you rank them in your own mind with that kind of target of 80 to 100,000, this is what we would like, and then we just vote them up and down and go for it. It's gonna take us an hour or better just to vote them up and down. Like, if we start bringing them all in and interviewing them all, I don't wanna make it that complicated. I wanna make this as simple as I can, but that's me. So, but you guys make, I'm only one.
I agree.
I-
And maybe we need a special meeting to deal with these outside of the regular council.
Well, and now I'm thinking, if we give them the full 3 weeks to that Monday, we, as council members, won't have time to rank them and get them back. So I think we're gonna have to, let's do it for the 2 weeks. That gives
Okay.
us, and I'm honestly, we as council members have to take that opportunity to take all of these and the sheets and give them a number and turn it back into staff, and they'll have the 4 or 5 days, whatever it takes to put those numbers together. We can't make it all, so, yeah, let's move the date a little bit different than what I said, because that's why we have a work session. Is, let's make it a couple of weeks from now, and then we will have ourselves 5 to 6 days as council members to get those back to the council before, so they can rank them and then get them on the agenda for the 21st. So we'll work it out.
So due date about the 8th, maybe?
Bring back, my calendar didn't go to. Yeah, somewhere about that.
The 8th would give us plenty of time to get it on the agenda.
For us to rank it.
And for you, correct.
By the 14th, we need them back, you need them in your office by the.
By the, if I have them in my office by the 8th, I can get them to you in more than enough time to review them before they get placed on the agenda.
Right, I'm saying, but you need them all back from us by the.
Yes,
14th.
from you guys, but from the
Or
applicants
13th.
by the 8th,
Yes,
yes.
that's,
Okay, so the date for the applicants 14 for us.
Correct.
Okay.
13th, yeah.
Are you gonna send us like a reminder of that?
Yes.
We're gonna call you.
Phone calls, emails, yes.
Well, I'm sorry, yeah, I know you have so we kind of moved forward. And I hope that's okay, but just to bring you up quickly to speed, we talked about a number of targets that we're gonna want to fund. And so we're looking at 10%, which is about 80 something, and probably no more than 100. So that's our target goal. As you start thinking about how you want to do it, we just kind of set the dates so we know. And now we're talking about how you would like to rank it or have some sort of numbering system.
That's based on the paperwork.
So if you saw what this is, so we're taking comment now if you think any questions you would like. I personally like the 3 that Joe put towards me when I asked him, give me help with this. Provide a detailed statement as to why the applicant is seeking COVID-19. That would be one of the things on the application. Also, some of them already have done that. Other one would be to request funds do the requested funds replace funding and revenues lost in direct result of the COVID-19? If yes, please explain, include an explanatory of any measure taken in an attempt to avoid those losses. It might get a little touchy there, but we want to make sure that that they actually, look at other sources and maybe other sources they got. And I put in here how to use the funds, because I would like to see the money stay local. If this is local money to help our local nonprofits, I'd like it to be spent locally as much as possible. So are these funds going to be spent here locally to provide whatever? You're going to hire local craftsmen, tradespeople, whatever. What's this money going to be used for, and will it be spent locally instead of going out and buying something from China? So that's kind of where I was going, and I'll take suggestions. more. What do you think, Joni, you haven't had a chance yet? It's a
No,
lot.
I like this format because it's pretty clear. And it's like I was looking at it today at work, I'm like, it's, I like the fact that where it's justifying and also around requests for emergency. What is your emergency?
They don't all have to be emergencies, but that would be a higher ranking, I would
Right.
believe, if it's something that's more of an emergency. The other thing I put here, and I just did this, was if you need additional information, remember, we can table any of these if they come before us and by vote. And so if you really, if the majority feels that they don't have enough information to do well, we can table it and hold that money, some of it aside. That's why I like that flexibility. And then ask for more and then see if we can come back and agree. So I like that option in there. So if you really feel that this application just doesn't meet my standards yet, or no, then let's mark it down, take note of it, and let the staff know so they can see if they can get those answers for you so we can get this done in 20 weeks.
I do have a quick question. One of the questions it says, has the applicant,
You really need to pull that mic right to your face.
has the applicant secured any other sources of pandemic related funds? That's pretty much a good word, right? Because we can't really check that, right?
Yeah, it's honesty.
Yeah.
There is a publicly available list of everyone who has received PPP. To the extent that that's accurate, I'll have to trust the federal government.
Well,
Okay.
So-
Cameron didn't catch a smile over there. So
I couldn't resist, sorry.
better than speaking.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
there is one other step that will need to be taken, which actually can be concurrent with some of this other stuff. And that is, the questions that you're talking about sending out to the existing applicants we have to get those, we have to contact all of these applicants, and we have to get that list to them. That is going to take a couple of days.
Sure. Yeah, so.
So we have to prepare the material and then get a hold of them and then get it out to them. So, not hoping that anyone who has already applied, and there are a few pretty complete applications here, but some of them will need to supply us with more information. I don't think that if we could get them out before the end of the week, if that would be too much of a hardship to get back to us by the week.
We can hold off, but I really think they need the money. It would be a good idea to move forward as quickly as possible, even if it puts a little pressure on them. We're on a little pressure, so I'm gonna transfer a little bit to another project too. So, but yeah, quicker you can kind of just add a couple of those 3 questions in and go out and say, if you feel your application meets these standards and this is how you're gonna be ranked, you're good. If not, please provide us some more information. Does that make sense?
That's good. Just pointing out that that's another step that staff has to take and get finished by the 8th.
Okay, so you're talking about these 3 here from the city attorney, correct?
Yeah, in that order or whatever somebody else, we did talk about the outcomes. I think that's,
Okay, so that would be like and I like those 3, but I also like the ones from the personnel director, I like number 1 and 4.
right. Okay. Yeah, that was the measurable outcomes. That's one we brought up, and I think that's a good one. So I'll make a note of that over there.
Duly noted.
All right, anybody have a, I'm gonna say objection, but idea or suggestion?
That's reasonable.
Yeah, again, if they kind of know what we're gonna be ranking them on, they kind of know what we're gonna be asking, and so these are we throw these in, and if they want to give us more, that would be great. So, all right.
I have one last comment.
Sure. Go ahead.
Your, the statement here, your suggested dollar amount of assistance is different from request. That can get real messy real fast, and that can result in a lot of wasted time. A suggestion would be, we have a target to give 10% of the $875,000. Assume that we get 18 requests that are valid, or legal, and they come forward for ranking, but they add up to $125,000. One suggestion would be to take each approved application and ratio it down to fit under that 10%. Everybody gets a cut, and everybody goes home now. But it prevents a lot of bickering and a lot of confusion trying to come up with a number for each one of those 18 applicants. How much are we going to cut this one, and what's the rationale for the cut? And how come somebody got cut more than the other one before you know it, you bog down. So that's just a recommendation.
Sure. Wouldn't that kind of fall under this, request, the number one, the request range, for up to 5,000 for any agreed upon amount? I mean, that would kind of limit everybody to 5,000 under.
There's some big dollar amounts in the applications we already have.
So this is my thought on that. I'll just throw it out there for your thought, for your. So I kind of set 5,000 as a target. So anything that was 5,000 or less that's requested just basically gets approved. When those are taken out of basically the overall amount, then we look at the other bigger requests, and those are pared down, like you said, down to whatever. If there's now 8 requests and we have 70,000 left after the 5,000 or less are met, then each one gets cut on whatever that amount is. So in other words, I don't think somebody that came in with a $3,000 request that seems very reasonable should take the same hit as somebody that came in with a $20,000.
Understood. And I agree with that.
If that kind of makes works for me, we should set kind of a minimum threshold. And I thought 5 seems very reasonable. And then after that, we take what's left and look at everybody and go from there. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask this question because it needs to be asked.
Sure.
There may be an application or 2 or 3, when you get them all together, that you collectively decide should not be funded. I just want to put that out there, because if that happens, then we have to be prepared to make that recommendation to staff so that we can compile it accordingly. So, and using your ranking system, at what point do we not fund? I mean, is it 0, or is it, at some other point?
Good point, yeah. There might be a couple there that aren't really either emergencies, aren't about reopening, and they also aren't. I put that number in there because I think some people are asking for the sky and other ones are asking very reasonable. So I have a hard time myself saying, I would like to see that number, us, when we rank them, say, all right, that $20,000 request or $18,000 request, I feel could be funded at 12 and they'll be fine. And that number goes in, and then as part of the evaluation, that you all put that number together, and that's what we bring before us. So you feel that it doesn't meet that, what it's requesting, you rank low, and if you feel that the numbers maybe more than what they need to not just replace their funds, but they do need something to get open and to be safe, then you put that new number in, and we collectively as a whole come up on an average at that number. That's why I put it in there. That's what was my thought process. Now, I'm sorry, blue was that's what I was trying to do, not to create a bickering, but to collectively come up with what majority feels is a fair number for each application. What I like.
Well,
Yeah.
in addition to what he said, and answering Steve, what we can do after we do the grading, and we have maybe few that do not qualify, we don't think, we can vote on those at the end, those lower. I mean, as a council, we can just get together and say, these 3 or 4 are, don't qualify, and we can discuss it and say, we can come to a decision. I think this will be a recommendation. that we can go on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
each
mean-
one's gonna be voted on separately. so-
Yeah, and at the end, we have the 3 or 4 that may not qualify.
I guess part of me just wants to put it out there because that is a potential eventuality that one or more of the applications we receive meets none of the criteria.
That's why I put that number in there, so when we rank them and we look at it ourselves, because we are the ones getting the money, we're on the hot seat, sorry, but that's the reality. I know I look at one and say, okay, I can't replace every dollar you may have fundraised for the year, because I think you're more, but I think I want to give you, to make sure you open and make sure you do safely, or you may do whatever. So I'll put that number in. Now, they'll come to us with what they're asking. But as part of the rating score, there'll be an average of what we all have decided, what we think the numbers are. So they're gonna add up all 7 of our numbers, okay? And then they're gonna divide it by 7, and that will be the number along with the score. The score is 68, and the number is 12, not 18. You know, like I said, that's kind of what I had in mind. I don't know if that works for you. There's only one street this time. What do you think?
Well, I think that's a good start. I think that we need to look at these things individually as they come to us. And then we can make those assessments. So this gives us a base to go with. Okay. And so on the rank, what is it going to be 1 through 5?
Yes. All right, thank you, everybody, not happy, but, yeah, we are on the.
Well, a little bit more clear. I mean, that's
Well,
what I-
yeah, it's
I think
important,
it's a good start.
but,
Very good.
yeah, this
Yes,
is,
it's.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of closing comments.
Okay.
This is, this is money that we received from the federal government to do good things with.
Right.
Okay. What you have talked about tonight was the best way to do good things with the money. Within the criteria that have been established to do them. And I think, I really, I mean, aside from the fact that I probably should have paid a little more attention in that statistics class. The reality is that number one, it's money we didn't have a couple of months ago, and we'll be able to help people with that. And some will get that help to some extent, or some different extent. I haven't heard anybody who I talked to with an application that has yet said that I would appreciate getting a lesser amount if that's all that can be given. And so I don't want to end the meeting tonight with the thought that this is going to be tough, difficult, or we're going to make people mad. I think we're doing the best we can with a limited amount of money, with criteria that you established and only you can establish. And then when we get it all back together again at the appointed hour, we'll be able to do some good in this community. That's the way I'd like to have it.
This money they never had, so it's like you said.
so, exactly, I feel that nonprofits do so much for us in our town. I mean, that's one thing that makes Bisbee so great. So anything that we do, and they're gonna be appreciative that we want them, you know, to stay viable, and we want them there when this thing, we can finally put it to bed, and so, yeah, it's all good. Any other comments or concerns? trying to get it done in a little over an hour, and I think we're just about there. All right. Thank you, everybody. Motion to adjourn.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn in a
Second.
several seconds, and all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, hearing none, motion passes, we are adjourned. Thank you. Please shut your mics off.